What's up everyone, it's me, I'm Coming Jojo, and welcome to another of my videos. And in this video I want to talk about a misconception when it comes to the Spider-Man slash Power Ranger franchise and fan base, that being the fact that Spider-Man inspired Power Rangers. And I seen this quite a lot. Like, I'm not really sure if it's like a big claim, but it seems like a bunch of people say that, like, oh, it's because Spider-Man why we have Power Rangers. And well, in some degrees, yes, Spider-Man has an impact in Power Rangers, but at the same time not really. And well, I'll explain to you why. This is going to be a video that cleans up this like misconception, so let's begin, shall we? But before we start, I just want to tell you guys to subscribe to my channel. It would really like help me out to like grow up and expand my channel. So yeah, and also like just leave comments, let me know what you guys think about the video, if you like it or not. So yeah, so I'm a pretty big Spider-Man fan. Like, I really like Spider-Man a lot. He's my favorite superhero of all time. And yeah, he's just like the great hero, like the everyday man. Just like I can just spend hours and hours talking about him. I mean, he's my favorite fictional character of all time. And another thing that I'm a pretty big fan of is Tokusatsu. Unlike Spider-Man, where I was a Spider-Man fan since I was a little kid, I became a Tokusatsu fan a bit later on in my life. Of course, as a kid, I was into Power Rangers, but later on, I don't know, I just didn't really like Power Rangers anymore until like a few years ago, like 6 years ago. I got curious about Power Rangers once again, and of course, I found out it was based on a Japanese show called Super Sentai, and then I got interested in Super Sentai, and then I found out it was a part of a genre called Tokusatsu. Then I researched Tokusatsu, and then I became a fan of a bunch of Tokusatsu franchise. And as a kid, of course, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and then I found out about that in the late 1970s, 1979 to be specific, there was a Japanese Spider-Man TV show, which I always found kind of weird. But now, of course, later on, as I grew older and know more stuff and research stuff, I came to know that this show was made by Toei. And of course, as a Tokusatsu fan, yes, this is this is not just a Japanese Spider-Man show. It's a Tokusatsu Spider-Man show. And this show, like, of course, it was made in a deal between Marvel and Toei, and of course, it's nothing like the Spider-Man we know here in the West. Different actually, because like this show was rather interesting. Of course, because Peter Parker was a different guy, and not just that, but like he had like his origin story was different. Like, the villains were different, instead of being like the classic rogues category of Spider-Man. There was like weird Tokusatsu monsters, and yeah, Spider-Man was far different than Peter Parker. He was a bit more like kind of crazy than Peter. Like, of course, his main line being "I am the emissary from hell," which is pretty cool. And of course, he had like a cool giant robot, Lil Parta. I think that's how you say it. I'm sorry, but yeah, overall, this was a pretty wild out there. Spider-Man was like nothing like we've seen before, and yeah, now compared to like the rest of the Spider-Man franchise, it's rather something that stands out a lot, and it's very unique for what it was. Well, it's unique when it comes to Spider-Man like franchise, but when it comes to Tokusatsu, it's your standard favorite Tokusatsu stuff. So we're going back to the topic of this video, that Spider-Man inspired like Power Rangers. We already went over why the show was made, just because Marvel wanted to expand their superheroes like different countries, so they just gave it to Japan, and Japan did, of course, Japan Tokusatsu, and so it just made sense to turn Spider-Man to that type of show. So yeah, that's why the show was made. And of course, again, like a bunch of people say like that Spider-Man inspired Power Rangers, and really know the backstory. They're like, oh really? But in reality, not really. Spider-Man inspiration to it was kind of like, yes, there was inspiration, but it's not as big as people make it out to be, and I'll tell you why that is. So I was inspired by this video of Kami Circle that made a video about like a misconception how Toy didn't consider Go Ranger and Jack the first Super Sentai. They consider it was Battle Fever J, but later on they changed their mind, and of course that's not true. That's a lie. So yeah, that's what inspired me to make this video. As we all know, Inchinamori, who would some people would consider him the Stan Lee Jack Kirby of Japan. He of course created a bunch of superheroes in the 70s. That being like of course Kamen Rider, Andrew Kaikaider, Cyborg 009, and Tsuno Man, and of course Sentai. So and of course they're like we're turning to. I think the first start off like as ideas, but then they became like live action TV shows. That's been Tokusatsu, which was inspired by like later early on like the 1960s like Ultraman shows and like Godzilla and other like more like sort of like early obscure Tokusatsu characters, like kind of like also like Lion Maru. So yeah, and that was like a famous genre in Japan. It started like there, how Tokusatsu, which was like live action superhero shows, like them fighting like a bunch of like monsters and like with spandex suits, and that's where all the tropes started. Not just that, but of course Japan also had a bunch of like giant mech, giant robots like sides of building stories and like toy lines. Of course, like one of the most famous example being Messenger C, and of course Toy had a bunch of those famous robots. And of course, when they made the live action Spider-Man show, they decided to make a giant robot to help Spider-Man fight giant monsters, but that wasn't really a unique idea of like a giant hero fighting giant monsters. As we went over it, Ultraman in 1966 did that, and also Godzilla, and also some other early obscure Tokusatsu. So that whole idea wasn't really that original. Again, Spider-Man's just your standard fare Tokusatsu show. But I'm not really sure if this Spider-Man was the first like Tokusatsu show to feature a giant robot. Maybe, maybe not. But again, it's something that they would have eventually done anyways, even if it wasn't for Spider-Man per se. And then of course when Toy lost the license of Spider-Man, their contract ended. They of course of how popular the Liam Parton was and the Spider-Man show, they decided to start putting mechs in their Sentai series. That being the third one being Battle Fever J. So yeah, that's all when it comes to Spider-Man's influence on Super Sentai slash Rangers. That being that, of course, it was the first one to have a mech, so of course it would make sense to have them in Sentai. So yeah, overall, nothing really major. Again, Spider-Man, not really that unique of a show. It's based on a bunch of tropes of Tokusatsu at the time, and giant robot fighting monsters. Again, it's something that Tokusatsu already did slash anime. So yeah, the whole having mechs in Super Sentai would have maybe. Yeah, I would think they would have done it even if it wasn't for Spider-Man. But yeah, I see some people saying like, oh, Spider-Man inspired the Power Rangers straight up, which again, it's not really true. Like, again, yeah, kind of, but not really. We already been in this video already went through all the reasons why not. So that's all when it comes to Spider-Man Power Rangers. And before we end this video, I just want to go over some cool stuff. As you can see here, there wasn't somewhat an official crossover with Spider-Man and Kamen Rider V Dream, and it's overall pretty cool. Like seeing those two, like of course, legendary characters like meet up, and it was overall pretty awesome pictures and awesome story overall. And then there's another image where Spider-Man's with that weird blue anime cat. I forgot its name, but also he's also hanging around with like a bad favorite J, which was of course the Sentai, which was the first Sentai when it comes to mechs, and then you have that Ultraman anime. I forgot the name of it. I'm sorry, but they're pretty cool pictures. And now in the comic books, there's also been like an official crossover with Spider-Man and like the Marvel Universe and Ultraman. But as you can see, there was a cool Spider-Man variant cover with Ultraman, which of course big legends. And there was also like a cool fan art of like Spider-Man and Kamen Rider Black, which is pretty cool overall. So that means, yes, Spider-Man is the only Western superhero from Marvel and DC which has met the big three of Tokusatsu, that being Ultraman, Spider, and Super Sentai. So yeah, that's why a reason why he's the great superhero of all time. So yeah, Spider-Man was the only superhero to meet the big three of Tokusatsu, that being Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and Super Sentai. So yeah, that's all it comes to this video. I just want to clear up this misconception, and that's all. So have a nice day.